So I'll just quickly introduce myself. Again, my name is David Fakunle, born and raised in East Baltimore. I like to call myself a mercenary for change. The reason I call myself a mercenary for change is twofold. Number one, I usually come at a cost. Number two, you will find me anywhere and everywhere around this city. You will find me in academia, you will find me in government, you will find me in arts and culture. Whatever I can do to promote justice, love, and truth, I'm gonna be there. So 9 times out of 10, you have seen me somewhere, and I will keep it that way. But we are here this afternoon to talk about what it means to address community trauma in the city. This is something that's very near and dear to my heart. Being born and raised in East Baltimore, seeing the plight of many of my contemporaries, it has bothered me to this day that I have these opportunities to stand in front of you, to facilitate this panel with these wonderful people, to do the things that I do, but there were people who grew up right alongside with me who never left my block. That upsets me. It upsets me every single day. And I know I have the favor, God's favor, all that kind of stuff, the universe's favor, karma, whatever you want to call it, but there's more to it. And I've learned that it's systemic, and that bothers me. So now my purpose in life is to change the system, honestly, to destroy the system, as gruesomely as possible. But to keep it in this city, one of the things that I'm working on, shameless plug, but this is very relevant, and I definitely am gonna take notes. So if I'm on my phone doing this, it's not because I'm not paying attention, I'm taking notes. Is working at the health department on a citywide trauma initiative. So this is something that's a long time coming, looking to have a network, a viable, vibrant network of entities in the city who are already addressing trauma. One of the things that I said is we are not trying to recreate the wheel. The wheel is already there, the pieces are already in place, we just want to help the communities put them together. So it is wonderful for me to be on this panel to hear what you all are doing to address trauma in the city. And the first question that we started with our discussion several months ago was, what is trauma? We spent 3 hours answering that question. We could have been 3 hours more. So I think that's a very important definition to put out there. There is no one definition of trauma. That's fine. That's totally fine. That's okay. We wanted to just hear that. Tell the truth, spare the devil. We know there's more definitions of trauma than just one. Just tell us what they are. And that way that helps us to understand the solution. So I'm going to introduce this wonderful panel right now. Women will go first. I think that's fair. You don't want to? Yes, please. You don't want to go first?
I'll go first. I don't mind.
Okay, so I'm gonna just can I introduce you? I'm gonna introduce you real quick. Okay, so this is Samirah Franklin. She is the director of the Baltimore Youth Organizing Project, and I'm gonna just lay out 2 questions. What is trauma to you, and what are you doing to address it?
Oh, I don't need to go anywhere. I got a mic. Sorry, guys. All right. So, what is trauma to me? Trauma to me is, of course, the things that I've experienced. Trauma is whatever it is, to the respective person. For me, it was, growing up without my dad really being there very much, and having to be like the parent, for my younger brothers and sisters and that kind of thing. It's stress, growing up too fast, all the different kinds of things like that. So trauma is, to me, those different things. Trauma can be to you very many different things. How am I addressing trauma? Well, through Baltimore Youth Organizing Project, we aim to build power for the youth of Baltimore City and use that power to make change in our community, and that begins with listening. So we have an ongoing listening campaign. We go out and we do house meetings and one-on-one relational meetings with young people in our community, and we listen. What do you want for your community? And then what are you willing to do for your community? So, we advocate, of course, for the things that young people in Baltimore City say that they need. And, of course, right now we're in the middle of a fight with our mayor and that kind of thing. But that is the thing that's the thing that we do. That's what I signed up for. Ongoing fight, with the powers to be in our city to make sure that young people are prioritized and to make sure that, their voice is heard.
Great, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. So we're going to take it over to Brother Elijah Miles. Same question, yes, sir, from Morgan State University. So, sir, what is your definition of trauma, and what are you doing to address it?
My definition of trauma is just anything that affects you in a drastic way, you know what I mean? Things that was traumatic to me growing up was, seeing police brutality firsthand. So the one thing that's real vivid in my mind is it was a guy named Plucky. And Plucky was, selling dope, running around. But I remember the police, like the knockers, the undercover police jumped out on him and just took a walkie-talkie out and just beat him repeatedly, you know what I mean, in front of the whole community. And that was traumatic. That was traumatizing. And some people, and Dr. Joy DeGray talks about trauma a lot with post-traumatic stress syndrome. And she says that, you know what I mean, two people can see one thing, like two people can see 9/11 and one person not be affected by it at all and the other person be completely traumatized. And so the thing is that what I do with Tendea, I have an organization called Tendea, and what we try to do is use the pain that we have gotten, you know what I mean, that has been built up from these traumatic experiences, but use this pain in a way to, you know what I mean, as motivation to move us forward. And so what Tendea tries to do is basically we try to organize youth, you know what I mean, 21, 22, the like college age groups, the young ones, the ones that, you know what I mean, that start things, that still got the fire in them, and we organize them in order to do something that's effective in our communities. And what we see as effective in our communities is we organizing our money so that we can build stores. We organizing, we learning and studying our history and our culture so that we can practice it and apply it. And we just trying to unify off the basis of ideological sameness. So that's what I try to do.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. And last but certainly not least, Brother Imhotep Fatiu, founder and minister of Operation Pan-African Liberation Movement. Brother, same question.
Trauma is racism. We play around with words too much. There's only one source of trauma for black people in the world, and it's racism. Everything else is nothing but symptomatic trauma. So child abuse is symptomatic because the parent who don't know how to raise his or her child in the black community is the result of racism. And so until we start truly analyzing the source of the issues that impact the black community, we're going to keep playing games. So every time we convene these conferences, we always want to analyze black people as if black people live in some type of zoo. We know animals to be analyzed. The issues and the problems that's ravaging the lives of black people is racism through and through. And racism is designed to empower white people. Racism is a power dynamic, and we got to understand it that way. Racism has nothing to do with hate. It has nothing to do with a person saying you a nigger, I hate you, I don't like you, you got nappy hair. That's used to distract you from truly understanding what racism is all about. The reason why the white founding fathers and the successive institutions that came behind them, the reason why they set it up and put it into motion is because they sought ways to benefit and to empower the white community. And on some levels, there's nothing wrong with that because the Japanese got a system designed to empower the Japanese. The Chinese has a system designed to empower the Chinese. See, as African people, we have to stop trying to analyze ourselves in relation to white people. That's the problem. We want to put ourselves in their equation. They have not constructed the equation for you. And the education that we receive within the racist system socializes you to perpetuate racism. And that's the reason why we even look at each other the way that we look at each other. Because you have been socialized to do so. And the reason why I'm going to tell you why I say this. Because I'm one of those individuals who had a mother who raised 6 children who went to work every day from 6 a.m. in the morning to 6 p.m. in Park Heights with no father, but she made sure we all us ate every day we had a home. So eventually, I ventured into the streets. And as a result of going into the streets, I sold dope all my life for the most part. I spent 14 years in prison. I was shot. I got a 45 slug on my spinal cord. I stayed paralyzed for 18 months. But while I was in prison, I started thinking about some things. I tried to figure out, like, what was really going on? You know, are we just inherently evil? Are we inherently bad? I read all the criminologists and what they say. And you know what I realized? We're not inherently evil. We're not inherently bad. We're not inherently incapable. What I realized that crime is socially engineered. So the black criminal is socially engineered. That's what I came to realize. The black criminal serves an interest for the white system. The black criminal is necessary for this system to move. The black child who's not reading is necessary for this system to move. The black young girl that's having babies at early ages is necessary for this system to move. Then the question becomes, why are they doing those things? Because of the socialization. We have been socialized to behave in ways that does not push us forward. And it starts in basic institutions. It starts in the home, because our homes are ran by individuals who were educated in this educational system. So therefore, you bring back into the home miseducation as to what it means to be a black parent and how to parent your child. That's why we beat our children and do the things like that. You beat the child when you don't understand how to raise the child. See, the black way, the African way, because I'm going to use the words interchangeably, black, African-American, and African. I prefer African. Our way is a multi-parenting system. A multi-parenting system, because 2 parents is not enough for 1 child. You can have 2 parents with great education, you can have all the finances in the world, that 1 child won't give them hell. Not because he or she is bad, because you're trying to develop and evolve a new human being. You need the expertise of the older people in the community. You need that. But since you don't get this in your educational upbringing, and we start becoming so possessive about our children, my child, my children, you attempt to do a job that requires a community. So how do I define trauma? This word we want to play around with. It's racism. That's the trauma that we are suffering from. It's been in our lives since we've been here. It's in our lives now. It's a part of every single institution that have been constructed within this society. Everyone is racist through and through. Medical, religious, political, social, it's all racist when it comes to us. I can remember being in a juvenile court. I was 13. Master Cochelle was her name, the juvenile judge. She looked at me and told me that something had to be wrong with my brain, and she ordered that I have my brain checked out at Johns Hopkins. They put me in an MRI machine and looked at me. What type of damage you think that done to me, you know? But she did that. That's what they do to us. And until African people come into a knowledge as to who they truly are, you will continue to be traumatized and brutalized and abused within this system. I don't care how much money you make. I don't care how many letters you got behind your name. It do not change the nature of this system. You cannot reform it. That's a lost cause. The greatest of the African-American reformers was murdered by this system, Dr. Martin Luther King. So how do I define trauma? Racism.
You address racism. You did a good job of defining it. How do you address it?
I don't attempt to address racism. That's the problem. See, I'm not focused on the racist because as Frantz Fanon teaches us, a racist within a racist society is the norm. So every racist person that's walking around, they're normal within their society. And I think the problem of African people, we're trying to reform the unreformable. You can't reform them. So they're not my concern, nor are their systems are my concern. I'm going to tell you what I do for African people. I educate African people and I bring us into a knowledge of ourselves and we build institutions. May the 14th was Mother's Day. We just opened up a vegan restaurant, 1210 North Charles Street. And from the time we opened it up at 9 a.m. until 5:30, we had people outside the door. It's about creating institutions for our people. It's not about trying to reform them and their ways. They're going to do what they do because that's who they are. And we got to come to realize and accept that. We got to accept that. Anytime you have a people that run around the world who feel like they should define the world and rule the world, the problem is them, the problem is not us. And we got to realize that running around trying to reform people and Black Lives Matter, that's a misuse of our time because every black parent in the community know that they damn children's lives matter. We ain't got to keep doing that. We got to focus on developing ourselves and building for ourselves and not trying to validate ourselves through their acceptance. That's the problem. You want to be accepted by people that's not trying to accept you. That's the problem with us. We produce greater minds when we had segregated schools. as opposed to as we are now with this quote-unquote integrated school system. We are destroying the minds of our children nowadays. They are torture chambers. I worked in Forest Park, I worked in Connection, and I worked in Utah Marshall Elementary School. Our children are being destroyed in those institutions. But that's necessary for racism to do what it does. So I build the institution. I teach history and culture every Sunday. I have a course that I teach at Morgan. He's one of my students right here. She was a part of my youth organization, the Urban Youth Initiative Project. So I have a youth organization that focuses on developing African children, because when a people do not know who they are, they will attempt to assume anything to be something. And that's what's going on with us. So the unresolved conflict that's being manifested amongst young African males is because we don't know who we are. And no one wants to help to teach us who we are. It's our responsibility to bring the culture into the forefront. We want to keep culture out of the background. You got to talk about culture, because at the base of our misorientation is the fact that we have been culturally derailed as a people. We define manhood by a standard that does not work for us. We define womanhood by a standard that does not work for us. Our idea of success is wrong. The way we rear our children are wrong. The family structures is wrong because we're trying to adopt someone else's ways. African people never had a nuclear family. That's not our way. That has been dropped on us. And that's the reason why our families right now are struggling, because we're not, using our traditions and our customs. So what do? I teach the history and the culture, and I live by example, and I don't bite my tongue in front of anyone when it comes to saving the lives of African people. That's all you got to do, is be an example of an African man or an African woman, and we're going to save some lives.
So I just heard 3 examples. That was very powerful, brother. Thank you. So I just heard 3 examples of wonderful initiatives, entities that are in this city that are addressing manifestations of trauma. One of the challenges that I see with those entities and many others that I've come across with is, how do we expand those services? How do we expand that knowledge, that wisdom, that insight throughout the city? So I'm not fortunate, if I'm not fortunate to be in your neighborhood, your community, to receive your insight or wisdom, well, how do we go about making that available to the entire city? An entire city that I believe deserves that knowledge, wisdom, and insight. So what are your thoughts about it really making it available on a citywide level? Whoever wants to go first.
Well, I'll just say that BOP's goal is to be to build a network of young people citywide. So that's the work that we do. It's not easy work. A lot of it, we partner with institutions and that kind of thing. And reaching out to young people age 14 to 25 is just going to be hard. Like, everybody knows that. But it begins, like I said, with the house meetings and the relational meetings and that kind of thing. And if young people feel like you're really listening to them, then they'll do. Like, they see that I ask them, I have a meeting with them, and I say, what do you want from young people? And they say that jobs are important and that kind of thing. And they see, and I tell them, well, come with me and stand with me, and as we demand this of the mayor and this of the corporate community and all that kind of thing. So if they see you producing results, then they'll be willing to, come along with you.
I would say that it don't necessarily need to be expanded. I think it necessarily, like, these organizations need to be supported. And so I don't think that a lot of us, I think when it comes to European individualism that we have adopted, I think a lot of us would rather rebuild something that's already built. And so my organization is connected with his organization. And so instead of we building a whole study class, all of my members are obligated to go to his study class on Sundays so that we can learn the history and learn the culture. And so we got to start connecting to the people that's already doing the work. Why would I go build one if he's doing it? And so that's one thing. I think that if you don't live on that side of town, you got to be willing to go far to those resources and services just because they need to be supported and built up. And I think if we build up the organizations that's already present, then those organizations can grow and thrive, and then it will be all over the city. They can build more, they can hire more people and build more places where people can come. And so I think that you just need to support the ones that's already doing it and not try to build it. But on the supporting thing and on the unity thing, I do think that's a little bit more complicated than we see. Because even when the brother and the sister was up here talking about religion or talking about their perspective of Christianity, a lot of us got hot. And so that's a problem with unity. That's the issue with unity. is that we're not all on the same page, but we want to act like we all on the same page, but realistically, if you be honest with us, it's not all on the same page. You know what I'm saying? I'm looking at myself as an African. You looking at yourself as an American. You looking at yourself as a European, African, American. It's all messed up. You know what I'm saying? You Christian first. You Muslim first. I'm African first. It's all messed up. You get what I'm saying? And so until we get on the same page, then we can't. Unity won't be real. So I work with his organization because his organization is the same ideological structure that my organization is. But if his organization was not, I wouldn't have no need to work with him. Because it would just be, we're not fighting for the right thing. I'm trying to make him African, and you trying to get him, you know what I mean? You're trying to get him to be a Christian. You know what I'm saying? So so it's like to get unity, you got to support the ones that's already dead, but I think unity is always going to be idealistic in our minds if you don't be realistic that we got to see the same things and be on the same page. So that's how I look at it.
So I'm going to just follow up on that because
Hold on,
that's great. Okay, I'm going to let you go. Bob, I'm going to let you
All right,
go
I would
first.
just like to say that, unity can come through interfaith work. You know what I mean? I'm, it's plenty of people like, okay, I'm Muslim, I'm a Muslim woman, like a black female Muslim, that is great. But one of the closest people that I have right now is a white, gay pastor in Bolton Hill. And it's weird. It's crazy. I tell him myself, I say, Mr. Tim, like, this is weird. I don't know, like, if this is, like, I'm not going in the mass shit and telling them, like, I like you so much, but you do so much. He took me and my little brother to Salvador, and we got an experience of a lifetime, And all of the work that we do, he's one of the strongest champions for a lot of the things that we do. And I'm not saying that, like, he's the end-all, be-all. Like, I do the work as well. He supports. He doesn't lead the work at all. You know what I mean? We have to lead the work, and he's a support system. But at the same time, he lived a very different life. He lives a very different life. But at the same time, we get work done together.
See, I like where we going now. This is the real.
I definitely.
Yeah. No, this is what I like. No, you know what? I'm good. I'm just listening.
So I agree with the sister is saying. I do. But what I would say is matters what your goals is. It matters what your organizational goals is. My organizational goals is for African sovereignty. We don't need no help. You get what I'm saying? With that, we don't need no help from Europeans, Arabs, anybody. You get what I'm saying? And so when it comes to building African sovereignty, building self-determination, making sure that Africans know that they're African growing up, building institutions that's going to do that, how can white people help me with that? How can Arabs help me with that? They can't, you know what I mean? So if your goal is what my goal is, then I can't, it won't work. You know what I mean? It won't work because honestly, when I first built my organization, I tried. I swear to y'all, I tried. I really tried to have, you know what I mean? We had Pan-Africanists, we had feminists, we had, but it was all black people. We had Pan-Africanists, feminists, we had people that was part of the Nation of Islam. We had debate after debate after debate after debate. We couldn't get nothing done. So it matters what your goal is. And so it's like the principles of my organization, I'm not going to debate about. I'm not going to debate about whether, you know what I mean, whether we should build institutions because white supremacy is crushing us. I'm not about to debate about you with your relationship with white people. I'm not about to debate about you with that. You know what I mean? And saying whether we should build our organization and be exclusive only to us. I'm not about to debate about that. So it matters what the goals of your thing is. With something that's trying to change policy, you can have everybody. We ain't trying to change policy, though. We ain't trying to change policy. You know what I'm saying? We trying to change lives for generations to come. African lives. That's our goal.
Yeah.
So your question was how can things be expanded?
Yeah, and I don't want people to fall into this stereotype, because I agree with everything you're saying. Support is very important. So if you have people all over the city who are supporting your organization, that is expansion in itself. So how do we do that? How do you? So I'm hearing a conflict. And that's great. Again, this is the distance that we need to be honest about. So I hear those who are totally fine with, you know what, separate but equal. We on our own, we do our own thing. I hear others who are okay with forms of integration. There are people who aren't of our experience who believe in the cause. Why wouldn't we accept their help? Why wouldn't we accept their alliances? How do you resolve that?
I mean, the work, I don't work just for black people. I work in the interest of people who have less than me. Not black people who have less than me. You know, I work in the interest of those who have less. And how that work gets done is how that work gets done. We stand in solidarity on a lot of things. Me and Mr. Tim, we do not discuss being gay, being this. We don't discuss a lot of things. We work towards our common goals, and when our goals do not align, we do not align, and we do not work together. And it's things that we will probably never discuss, but we are doing important work that needs to get done, and it happens alongside him, and that's why I do it.
I commend the young lady because it takes a lot of courage to just be here and to be able to voice your position and your point. And I commend the young brother as well because they're going to be, this is our future right here. This is our future. Now, I'm different. I'm 46, right? So I had to commend him, but I'm different. See, my mission in life is not to reform a racist system. That's not my mission. I'm not seeking to reform something that's inherently evil at its origin. It's a misuse of time. My mission in life is to serve the best interests of African people and to put us in a position to be prosperous, sovereign, healthy, and whole. That's my mission. Do I think that different people can work together? I think people can work together. I'm not saying they can't. And when I made the example about segregation, I was trying to bring out a point. And the point, as I was saying, is that the illusion of inclusion isn't always better. That's the point I wanted to make. And I was saying that African people were in positions to develop and build themselves when they was by themselves. So that was the point that I wanted to draw out. Because many of us are under the illusion that it's better to have this extra inclusion. And that's a lie. For us to do what needs to be done, it's going to require for us to rely upon ourselves. And self-reliance doesn't mean that someone can't help you. It doesn't mean that. See, the reason why we interpret things how we interpret things is because how we have been educated. The education got our interpretation process distorted. In this society, everything always got to be either or. So if you're saying self-reliance, then that must mean that I don't want your help. It doesn't mean that. What it's saying is that African people need to develop the capacity to rely upon themselves first. That's what I'm saying. If a white person came in here, or Korean or Japanese, to say, Brother Imhotep, I got $1 million. Go do what you're going to do. I'm not going to say, you know what? You don't look like me, so take your $1 million and go over there. I don't want your green money. It's not black enough. You know? That's not what we're saying. And that's what this society does to your interpretation process. It has you to misconstrue everything when black people speak in the interest of black people. Everything when we speak for us is misconstrued because you want to assess us through the lens of someone else. That's why we're off. You have to assess African people through the lens of African people. You cannot use anyone else's definitions to define black phenomenon. You're always going to arrive at a false conclusion when you do so. So, in terms of the expanding, the black professionals have to become more involved on a grassroots level. The black professionals stay behind closed doors too much and analyze too much as if you are distinct from the people you're analyzing. So that's how it can be expanded. The black professionals, the ones that has the 16 letters behind their names, I'm saying those ones, the ones that get the 6 figures and stuff like that, they need to come behind those closed doors, let some of those vacation days go, and come out there and get down on the ground and do some real work. You know? You run around the world on all these vacation days, and then one thing you want to do is come back and assess the black community as if we some zoo people. We need to stop that. So for me, the onus is always on the black professional community. See, once upon a time, black churches were social institutions, and it was utilized to mobilize African people to push us forward. It was the primary organizing place was the churches. So the revolts that we had in this land were primarily organized inside churches. So those of us who has these institutions, who have access to resources, you have to bring that down. Like all these professionals that's in here, you should want to connect with these two young people and say, how can I help you? You know, he just said he got a young organization. She said she's doing work for those who don't have. So connect with the young people. How can I help you? This is what I do. I'm this professional. Can I bring this to your organization? He said about the debates he was having. So help him develop some type of evaluation form that can minimize that. You know, use these skill sets that you've been trained for. That's how we can expand it. And stop always expecting $1 for your work. You don't get free always trying to get $1. You can't get free that way. Nat Turner ain't had no dollar when he did what he did. Marty McLeod had $2.50. He built the institution. Look at Booker T. Walsh. Look what he built. Everything they had at Tuskegee, they done it themselves. They built the bricks. They built everything. And so now we're in this era time where everything got to be $1. I want to bill you. I'll bill you. Well, this consulting work, how much you going to pay me? I charge $50 an hour. I got time for that. People losing their lives. We dying out here. You worrying about a damn dollar all the time? We got to do better. We got to do better, African people. We have to do better. African people have to do better.
All right. This is great. So one of the things that I want to hear your thoughts on when it comes to addressing trauma is healing. And one thing I haven't heard yet is any manifestation of healing, or at least I haven't heard it to maybe my satisfaction, but that's okay. Here we go. How important is healing in addressing trauma to you personally and to your organization and your entities?
Okay, this is my belief, and it's based on experience. I believe I'm my first patient. My first patient. The highest grade I went to in this society was the 8th grade, and I never completed that. I never took a course on how to start a nonprofit. It's 501c3, and I just opened up a vegan restaurant, and we have our own child care facility, African Center. I know David Miller said it was only 2 schools, but we had one, 1413 West Baltimore Street. We take your child with the ages of 6 months to 5 years of age, and they learn Spanish, they learn how to do sign language, we build on English, they learn math, they get everything there. Now, that all comes from a person who only went to the 8th grade in their society. So for me, healing for African people can only come when African people know who they are. Because our trauma, like I said earlier on, is racism, and racism has derailed us. So the healing for us is to bring us into a cultural awareness as to who we are. Because that's when healing came for me. When I began to understand who I were as a person, everything began to change inside of me. As long as we allow our people to walk around in a state of confusion as to who they are, they will continue to behave in a very traumatic state of being. We will continue to hurt each other. We will continue to destroy relationships. We will continue to abuse children. We will continue to use drugs, drink alcohol, molest. We will continue to do all those things until we come into a holistic knowledge of who we are as a people. And I'm not speaking from theory. I'm telling you from experience, because I've been doing this work since 1992, and I've transformed murderers, people who I know have pulled the trigger. So I know that when you introduce people to who they are and give them a sense of self, it changes who they are. So healing for African people going to come through African culture.
I agree with the Bible. Because basically, for the same way for me is that I got, basically when I was in the 7th grade, I had a teacher named Mr. Scott, and Mr. Scott, he introduced me to the RBG flag. But before then, I was just from East Baltimore, Glover Monument, and that's all I knew. And I remember being angry and lost and and knowing that something was, you know what I mean, wrong about the situation I'm in, but didn't know how to really fight against it, and just was depressed, you know what I mean, always fighting all the time. I got kicked out of schools, and a lot of things that happened that didn't have to happen. But once he introduced me to the red, black, and green flag and said, Elijah, basically showed me that this is your flag and that you are different and you have your own people group and that you're connected to all these people. It was like when I got that information, that was the beginning of like my therapy. Because now I was chasing after something, I was searching for something, and it became like dope, you know what I mean? And some of us get lost in that area, you know what I mean, get lost in the history and the culture because it is so therapeutic. It is so freeing. All my insecurities, all my, you know what I mean, my things went away. And that's why I got this shirt on, you know what I mean? Because my identity, I was acting from a false identity. I wanted to be a real nigga so bad, you know what I mean? For real, you know what I mean? And I wanted to follow all the things that would allow me to stay a real nigga, you know what I mean? I'm not snitching. I got no value for women, you know what I mean? I want to be a drug dealer. And when I was growing up, it was, that's when the Bloods and the Crips and Purple City Bird Gang was hot, you know what I'm saying? I wanted to be one of them. I wanted to be a 12 o'clock boy. I wanted to be something that I wasn't so bad. And I think that's a lot of us growing up is that it's not that they don't have an identity. If you don't have an identity, you'll search out one, you know what I mean? You'll put one on and try it on. And so until I got a true identity, until I start learning who I am and start acting on what I know after figuring out who I am, acting like an African, being an African, not just learning it, that's when the healing came for me. And when I introduce other people into it, you know what I mean, the healing comes for them also, because a lot of us are just lost and angry because we lost. Or a lot of us is trying to be stuff that we really not, you know what I mean? Because I don't think none of us have the capacity to be a real nigga or the alternative of that, which I'm not gonna say, you know what I'm saying? We don't have the capacity to be none of them because at our essence, we're just not that, you know what I'm saying? And so when you teach a person, an African person, who they truly are, and the way you teach that, like me, I was looking for characters like Malcolm X, like Marcus Garvey, like, you know what I mean, Nat Turner. And so the people I'm measuring myself up to is not the man on the corner no more. I'm trying to be like Malcolm. I'm trying to be a disciplined man. I'm trying to, you know what I mean, have a family. I'm trying to be loyal to a one woman. I'm trying to, you know what I mean, work for African people, live and die for that. So once you get them a different view of manhood and a different view of womanhood based on those that's from the past, then they can act accordingly, and the healing comes from that. That's what I believe.
Yeah, I have to agree. It begins with knowing yourself and then, you know, acting on what you know. And, you know, you have, of course, all this trauma we talk about. We all experience so much trauma. And, you know, at some point it's rage. And then you have to turn that rage off and let that be cold anger that motivates you to act. And, you know, acting your own self-interest or the self-interest of others, but it begins with knowing who you are and your values and grounding yourself. And then when you do that, then you can act in the interest of others, like I said, and you know, you turn that rage off. You can't be out here mad at the world. You gotta have a cold anger that motivates you to act. You know how it feels to be powerless. So you work to build power for your people. But don't be all angry. Don't be like an angry black woman, guys.
Real quick, brother.
Real quick. She made it come to my head. The identity that I received about African history and culture, it's completely contrary to European, you know what I mean? The European way of looking at things. And so when they gave me an identity, when he gave me that flag, what I was trying to put in the words is that he didn't give me an individual identity. I died, you know what I mean? He gave me a collective identity that, yo, you are, you know what I mean? You are them. This is us, you know what I'm saying? And so me, you get what I'm saying? That individual thing is not like I'm helping, like I'm an individual that's trying to help other people. I'm an individual that's trying to help me because y'all are me. That's the identity, you know what I mean? So you don't have to tell me. Once you give a person that identity, you don't have to tell a black woman or a black man that you need to go do this for your people. Their identity will obligate it. That's why Carter G. Woodson said in The Miseducation of the Negro, he said, when you control a man's thing, you have to worry about his actions. Because if it ain't a back door for him to go to, if you told him he inferior, ain't a back door to go, he'll make a back door. because his identity calls for it. So once you give a collective identity to a black child that, yo, you are here so that you can help your people, and you are your people. I am because we are because I am. Once you give them that, you don't have to tell them what to do. They're going to make something happen. And that's the way, I just want to put it out.
Powerful words to end on. So with the last few minutes that we got, if anyone in the audience has any questions for the panelists, please feel free to ask them at this time. I see a hand right there. Yes, ma'am.
So I'm going to serve for a moment as a dissenting voice, and we spent all day talking about race. And I just want to put out there that race is a socially engineered concept. And we spent a lot of time about, it sounds like, I've got this kind of sense that there's some pitting of, African versus European, and the reality is, if we're all from African descent, and we are genetically, then aren't we all African? And I'm a half black, half white individual, raised in a black culture, so I actually identify more with black culture than I do white culture. But I've gotten a sense that, in order to really push forward this idea of, Black Lives Matter and all of that, that I, in some ways, have to reject half of myself. And considering that, by 2043, there will be more multicultural, we are at a multi-ethnic tipping point right now. So we are, as Maya Angelou said, more alike than we are different. We are more alike than we are different. And so I'm just proposing to everyone that we can have these conversations and still be united. So I don't really have a question other than, in your concept of change, what you have to say about what I just proposed.
In my concept of change, it stands, as I stated earlier, I see my mission as one designed for me to move African people to a better place. It's okay for us to try to erase the concept of race in 2017 when the concept of race been used historically to smash African people. So now the white people got all the wealth and all the power, so now let's just say race don't exist anymore. But you used it to amass all the wealth and the power. Right? But so, listen for a second, right? And that's the issue, right? The issue with us is that we never want to deal with the issue of race realistically. We get in our feelings about it. But we know that the oppression of African people in this land is the result of racism. So we have to deal with that. We're not going to act as if it don't exist. We're not going to act as if it does not matter. See, we'll be a very foolish people to all of a sudden in 2017 start saying that all us from Africa, you see what I'm saying, race don't matter. The white historians knew 200 years ago that life began in Africa, but they still used the basis of race to enslave us. So we're going to understand some things the correct way until African people are in a better position. We're going to deal with it the way that it truly is. Now, if every white person in America that benefits from the slaughter of African people are willing to relinquish your power and your wealth today, then we can have a realistic conversation. But if you're not willing to relinquish your power and your wealth and your privilege today, then we're not going to talk that way.
I would piggyback on what the Bible is saying because you know what I mean, race may be a social construct, but culture is real. And culture, and we are under a white supremacist dominated culture. And so when you go into why is we talking about building African-centered schools if we was getting a proper African-centered education in the schools? But no, the reason that I had to go and get that and get reawakened, you know what I'm saying, is because somebody ain't teaching me about myself in that education. And they can use it and say, you know what I mean, that race don't matter. But in the schools, I'm completely ignored. In the history, I'm completely ignored. they're not going to teach, when you got George Washington, they're not going to teach that all these founding fathers was raping us. You're not going to teach that. You know what I mean? But they must, in an African Center school, an African child must know that, or they're not going to understand reality as they look at it. That's why we get all confused when they killing us and be like, why are they killing us? Because we don't understand our reality because we don't know the history. And so another thing is that when it comes to Nat Turner, you know what I mean? I done heard Nat Turner talked about crazily in school. I done heard Malcolm X talked about crazy in school. Why? Because the curriculum that's teaching me about Malcolm X, they can't say that Malcolm X is a hero, that Malcolm X did some good things for y'all. They can't say that. They have to say that don't be like him, be like Martin Luther King. Because Martin Luther King, you know what I mean, was just more passive. And so the thing is that we need all our heroes and sheroes to be recognized for us to grow up, you know what I mean, grow up with a right mindset about us. And so when if you got a culture that just dominates all these other people groups, it's easy to say, you know what I'm saying, that race don't matter, or to make it seem like this what it does. It make it seem like we are the ones that's hating something. We ain't I haven't hurt, you know what I mean, none of us have ever hurt, you know what I mean, a white person. Like, we not up here trying to hurt, we ain't even focusing on white people. You know what I'm saying? But what we saying is we see an issue, we see the root of the problem, knowledge of self, and we saying we're going to go build some things that's going to benefit us. Nobody say this when Catholics build Catholic schools. Nobody say this when Jewish build Jewish schools or Muslims build Muslim schools. And don't get shady about the word Catholic or Jewish or Muslim, because all that is just a deification of their culture. It's just them. And when you look at Muslim, Islam, it's wrapped in with Arabian culture. So when you talk to them, I got a brother that's a Muslim. When he talk to them, the Muslims that's Arabian, they treat it as if you practicing my religion. You know what I'm saying? Because it's their whole culture is tied in with that joint. So no one says they being racist when they build schools for themselves. When they want to open up things and do stunts for their people and for their culture. But when we say it outrightly, we have to say it outrightly because we're not in our right minds because we miseducated. But really, if we was in our right minds, we wouldn't have to say that we have to work for our benefit. You would already know we got to work for our benefit. But now it got to be said because white supremacy put a trigger into us where now we hate ourselves and hate anybody that wants to work for us. That's why Martin Luther King was stabbed by a black woman at a book signing. That's why Malcolm X was killed by black men, because we hate the ones that's trying to do something for us. All we trying to do is build something for us. What's wrong with that?
Real quick, I'll just be quick. You know, I'm Muslim, so that's what, you know, defines my life, Islam and the Quran and that kind of thing. And, you know, a scripture says that, you know, God made us from a male and female into nations and tribes so that we may know and honor one another. You know, he divided us into nations and tribes all around the world so that we may know and honor one another. And that's just not what's happening right now. We aren't honoring one another. We aren't valuing each other's life, and that's the problem. You know, everybody talks about Malcolm X and that kind of thing, and he was a great Muslim man, absolutely. And you know, he had that anger, that rage at a time, and then, you know, he went to Hajj and he saw white, black, every color Muslims, you know, all worshiping, you know, Allah and focusing on that, and, you know, race wasn't such a big thing for him anymore. But it was another question.
Okay. So, wow, it's real loud. So, thank you, everyone at the panel, for having courage of your convictions and being able to stand up there and say what you have to say. I, too, have heard a lot today, and I've been really quiet because I just wanted to take it all in. But I really want to hear, and I have not heard, a lot about how the collective works together amongst the differences. So we're talking about a whole collectiveness of people who might have different religions, have different ancestries, come from different cultures, because I'm an Afro-Caribbean woman, and I'm not going to sit my Caribbean side of myself aside because that's who raised me. So, and coming from all of that, even if we all aspire from Africa, which is great, I'm talking about what I was rooted in, my culture that I was rooted in. Whatever makes us different, where is the collectivism in there? Like, young brother, I hear you when you say you got this organization and you don't want to necessarily deal with someone who doesn't have the same principles. I'm just giving you what I received. So if that's not the case, then I don't want to misinterpret or misspeak for you. But what I'm trying to hear from the panel or for someone else is to tell me is that we all have different things, because we all have different experiences, but what roots us is that we're all black, and we all come from a level of oppression. What is the collectivism that's going to go amongst the differences that are going to propel us forward so that we don't get tripped up on the continual differences that have always separated us for all these years to get us to where we want to go? And I say that a little bit to say, if you can indulge me for a second, is to say, I can be different, and I could have 16 degrees behind my name, and I could still understand the struggle of my people, and I could still have the same passion that you have, and I might just be fighting the same fight that you're fighting in a different form, and I'm doing the same work that you're doing in a different system. And what I want to know is there a hand-holding for everybody? If we all collectively are about the mission of moving our people forward and helping those who are less fortunate than everyone in this room, what is the mission, common mission that we can all hold on to move the needle forward? I don't want to hear about differences, because we talked a lot about that. What are we doing to move that needle forward?
Before you answer that, be short on time.
Okay.
So choose your words wisely. You
All
get a
right.
few.
All right. The mission that I would say is that we need institutions. We can agree that we need institutions, that the institutions that we go to, whether it's hospitals, the schools, the different things, is not controlled by us, you know what I'm saying? So we need institutions. And we can hold hands, you know what I'm saying, and build those institutions. But the thing is, when it comes to, let's say we building a school, what's going to be taught in the school? It's going to be an argument about that based on different people's ideology. So we got to deal with it, you know what I mean? We got to deal with the differences. And so if we want to build, you know what I mean, a clinic, are we going, when it comes to the ideology about health, where's it going to come from? Is it going to come from Africa? Is it going to come from Europe? Is it going to come from China? You know what I'm saying? So those differences come up when we really try to do serious work, but idealistically, you know what I mean, I want unity. And that's not that I didn't try to work with people. Is that when he had them in there, it's debate after debate after debate after debate. And so I say, man, this is the common line that we got to be able to say for it. You know what I'm saying? Even Malcolm X is like, I'm African first and everything else second. You know what I'm saying? And so the thing is that if we put Africa first, put us as being black first, like you said, then we can get some things done, because we all know that we need African-centered education, no matter what your ideology is. We need our own, you know what I mean, stores that's owned and operated by us. But it can't be ran capitalistically. But it's capitalist. You know what I mean? It's going to be an argument about that.
So I get that. You know what I'm saying? Those us in the USA, we don't have no, I'm not saying we got to have an exclusive claim on Africa. No, I'm not putting it that way. So my idea, my understanding is all inclusive. So all through the Caribbean are included. Yeah. So I think in terms of working together, it's still, all of us don't see ourselves the same though. So I get what you're saying, right? It's going to take some workforce, because I've been doing this from 1992, and I talked to a lot of people. We all do not view ourselves as the same. And on the basis of that, that's going to dictate how we move. So the first stage is we need to develop a national consensus around how we view ourselves, because self-definition matters how we proceed. And then once we come to some form of consensus on how we define ourselves, then we can move. But I am in agreement with the fact of working together. But I'm just saying, to answer your question, I think the first stages to that will be a level of self-definition. Because all of us, just because we got and we say we're African Americans, we don't see ourselves the same. And we don't have the same passion. We don't have the same love for each other.
Well, this was definitely an impassioned panel. I want to thank the panelists for their insight. Thank you to the audience. I don't mean to be rude. We just short on time. We already ran over. So if you have any questions for the panelists, please find them at the end of the event. We got to keep it moving. But thank you all for your energy. Thank you all for your attention.